it's Emma with Super Awesome Cool Pottery. Today we're going to be painting this cute bunny farmer we learned to draw in a previous video. I'm starting with my ground here. I mixed a warm golden yellow for it, and I'm just going to paint that in using consistent horizontal brush strokes. As we've been saying, simple is the key to cute. So I'm mostly just going to block colors in without doing too much painted detailing. I'm starting with the background so that it will be dry when I work on the foreground, and I won't have to work around wet paint as much that way, hopefully. Now I'm mixing this nice bright turquoise for the sky. I'm trying to keep all of my colors here pretty bright and playful. I have a lot of line details that abut my swath of sky here, so to keep myself from accidentally painting over them, I'm going to first outline those details with a small brush to create a little safety border for when I fill in the rest of the negative space. Now I am right-handed, so you may notice that I'm working from left to right, and eventually I will be working from top to bottom as well once I go in to fill in the rest of the space. And the reason I am doing that specifically is to keep my hand from smudging over fresh paint that I've just painted in. So if I'm working in a direction that is away from the fresh paint, that should keep me from accidentally smudging any of my work while it's still wet. And now that everything has a nice little safety border, I'm free to take a thicker brush and fill in the rest of the sky. I do seem to be low on my turquoise though, so I'm going to take a second to mix some more of that so I can have paint to paint my sky with. And just a little more turquoise. Next up is these rolling hills here. I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow to this green and maybe a smidge of blue just to make it a little sunnier and grassier looking. So now I'm going to outline these more detailed foreground elements just like we did for our sky before I go in and fill in the rest of the negative space. just going to mix up a little more green here, and then I'm going to go in and fill in all that negative space. Now we're going to move into the foreground, and again I'll be working from top to bottom, left to right, just to avoid smudging my work. If you're left-handed, you could work from right to left, that might help. I'm going to dive right on in here with this orange, and I'm just going to go ahead and start painting these carrots. I'm a little disappointed with this orange, just the coverage of it, it's very thin. So I'm going to go ahead and mix my own off to the side here, and I'm just going to see if this is any better. Do a second layer of that. Next, I'm going to do these carrot tops. So for the tops of the carrots, I'm going to mix a slightly bluer green to help them to stand apart from the yellow-green of the hills that we already have here. I'm also going to use a fun kind of swirly brush stroke with this thinner brush, and that's going to help differentiate the carrot tops from the sky. Next up is the basket this trailer is pulling. You can mix up brown using all three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, but I'm just going to use this pre-mixed one that I have on hand. I'm going to start with the inner slats here and work my brush vertically to mimic the direction they're laying. I'm going to do the horizontal slats after the inner ones so it looks like they're laying on top. I'm going to paint horizontally with my brush this time, again to mimic the direction the slat is going. It also kind of makes it look like wood grain, which is cool. I'm going to go ahead and do our bunny next. I want him to be like a dark brown with white spots. So I'm going to do the white spots first, so that way I can just clean up the edges and make them a nice shape with the dark brown later when I put that in. So now I'm going to go ahead and mix a slightly different brown. I took a little bit of red to warm it up, and then a smidge of black to make it a little darker. I just don't want it to be the same brown that I used on the basket already. And I'm going to use that new brown and start painting in our bunny. Just trying to be careful around the details of his little tiny face, which I will add in later when we do outlines. Let's do something on the tractor now. I'm going to do the windshield here. So I'm just going to take white with a tiny, tiny bit of blue in it just to tint it. I've been dying to paint the tractor a nice bright red, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm just going to take this red that I have straight from the tube and I'm just going to paint that right on there. I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to pop in and say it again now. Painting with consistent brush strokes in the same direction is a great way to make everything look really finished and professional when you're painting something or when you're coloring something. Just keeping that same motion makes everything look very neat. Suddenly clean. This is a different day. But everything's dry from the other day, and I'm gonna continue painting now. Got my setup here. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna paint the clouds now that the sky is nice and dry. I'm gonna show you a little trick here with my colors. So I'm gonna add a tiny, tiny, minuscule speck of red to my white, and that's just gonna tint the white very, very subtly, kind of a warm shade. And that should provide some contrast between the sky I've already painted and the clouds and just make them pop and look extra white. I can also paint my sun now, so I'm going to take some yellow and tint it with a tiny bit of orange, and I'm going to go in and paint that sun in my sky. There's some details on my tractor here that should be like a dark red, I think, so I'm going to tint a bit of red with a teeny tiny bit of black just to make it dark. And I'm going to add a little bit of blue just to keep the color from looking too dull, but also keeping it kind of dark. And I'm going to go in and I'm just going to paint this like vent on the side of the tractor here, nice dark red, and like this little detail on the top of the tractor too. So all that's left are these like tractor details. So I'm going to mix up a light gray and a dark gray, and I'm going to paint all of that with those shades. I'm starting with a light gray, so it's mostly white, a little bit of black to get it darker, and now I'm adding some red and blue just to tint it kind of a purpley shade, so it's not super boring to look at, I guess. And this light gray is going on the rims of the tires, on the little connector from the basket to the tractor. And now I'm going to use the gray that I have left, and I'm just going to darken it up. Slowly add black till it gets to a shade of gray that I like, and I'm going to use that for the tires and the seat of the tractor and the little pipe on top. Color's getting a little dull and boring from all the black, so I'm just going to add a smidge of red and blue again to tint it a little more purpley so it's a little more interesting to look at. You can see me testing the color I've mixed against the light gray that I already have, and I've decided it needs to be a little darker, so I'm adding a little more. Alright, that's good. I just wanted a very nice contrast between my two grays. So I'm painting in the tires now. And the seat of the tractor that the bunny is sitting on. Little pipe top of the tractor. And that's it. Ta-da! So the next step is going to be to wait for everything to be completely dry, and then I'm going to take some black permanent markers and I'm going to add outlines to the drawing to make everything look nice and cute. You could also do the outlines in paint if you wanted to, but I think it is a little easier to just draw them on with a marker, but you can definitely use paint if you would rather do that. So here is my writing implement. And I have a couple of these hanging out just in case I need to switch markers in case one runs out of ink or whatever. So if you see me swap markers, don't be alarmed. Painting is all centered now, and we can begin working on it. So I've got my Sharpie here. I'm going to start in the top corner, and we're going to work top to the bottom, left to right, like we were doing earlier. Same line of thought here. We don't want to smudge anything as we're working. I'm just going to add in some outlines to make everything look cute and cartoony. For things in the background, like this cloud I'm doing right now, I'm going to try and keep the outlines kind of thin because they are background elements and we don't really, our eye isn't really drawn to them that much. Things like this carrot that's in the foreground, I'm going to try and add some more depth to the lines, make them thicker and more interesting, just so that they draw your eye more and they look more exciting. And a thicker outline also kind of suggests that something is closer to your eye. So things that are in the foreground will have a thicker outline, and things in the background are going to have thinner outlines. And finally give our poor bunny a face. Hooray! Few more finishing lines, our bunny is done. This was a really fun painting to do. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Emma with Super Awesome Cool Pottery, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!